Michael Alago was in his early 20s when he began his stint as an A&R executive for Elektra Records, a gig which started him signing Metallica in the summer of '84. He's since become a legend in the music industry, as well as a published author and an amazing photographer. Michael, so good to have you on. Thank you for
Oh,
doing
well,
this.
thank you so much for having me. I just have a quick question. I'm looking at your screen, like within a screen, and what's that big white light there?
That would be the spotlight to
Oh,
make me look younger.
oh, okay. So it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, it is supposed to be
Okay.
there.
And you could just see me on the other little screen in my bedroom.
I can see you right now. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
great.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
right on.
Well,
Listen, this is
here
a
we
special
are.
day for you. This is a very special day. We're actually talking for the first time, and it's Nina Simone's birthday today.
It is February 21st. She was born in Tryon, North Carolina
Yeah,
in 1933.
yeah.
And she was my favorite artist of all time.
I know, and we'll get to that in the next 30 minutes because
Okay.
I know you resurrected her career at one point, and it was quite a story. So we'll get to that later on. I want to start with young Michael in Brooklyn in the '70s in your room,
Sure.
dreaming of what in that bedroom, watching the train pass by,
Right. I think just dreaming.
dreaming.
Yeah. As a young boy in Brooklyn, I grew up in a railroad apartment with my mom and my sister Cheryl. And the front of our apartment was three windows, but when you looked up, it was the elevated train. So we were forever hearing the noise of the elevated train. Um, I don't know how I started listening I started listening to music through a little transistor radio that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always turned to a radio station called 77 WABC. It was an AM station.
Right, right, right,
Back
right.
then, there was, it wasn't, how do you say, what's the word? Not profiled. It wasn't, oh darn. Ah, it wasn't heavily formatted back
Oh,
then.
there you go.
So,
Yeah,
please.
freeform.
Pardon?
It was freeform.
Well, sure, if you want to say
Yeah.
free form, okay, but it definitely wasn't heavily formatted.
Okay.
So, as a young 12-year-old, I was hearing everything from Aretha Franklin to Todd Rundgren
Right.
to Archie Bell and the Drells, Grand Funk Railroad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a host of music that I got to listen to, and that started to inform the music that I began to like. I also at that point in time had a little television in my room,
Mm-hmm.
and I started watching Dick Clark's American Bandstand.
Of
I
course. Yeah.
watched Don Cornelius's Soul Train
Mm-hmm.
and Don Kirshner's
Rock
Midnight
concert.
Special,
Yeah.
and
Midnight
the
special.
and in
In
concert and
concert.
Midnight Special.
Right.
And like I said, all of those things from Alice Cooper to the New York Dolls
Yeah.
to I don't even remember right now. All it was a variety of types of music that like tickled my ears, and I was so happy that I got to hear this variety of music back then. Where are you going? Are you hiding? Oh,
Sorry, I lost you for a minute. Yeah.
you lost. I
So a
thought you were.
variety of music.
I thought you were running away already.
No, are you kidding? No, I was the same way growing up. I mean, the best of the Midnight Special, and with Wolfman Jack
Oh
introducing
yes.
Aerosmith, and then you'd see the
Oh,
Carpenters, and then it was
totally.
such a smorgasbord of like different artists,
Good
and it was
word.
so exciting.
Smorgasbord.
What's that?
Good word.
Good word.
Smorgasbord. Because
Exactly.
ain't
Yeah,
that the truth?
it was right. And that
Yes.
was very exciting. And I have a feeling, I mean, you know, reading your posts in the morning on Facebook and everything, that you were quite the outsider. And I was too when I was a kid. And music to me was my only friend, really.
Hmm.
It was my window to the outside world, and where I could actually, for like maybe half an hour, listen to those cats and watch them on TV and identify with them, even though I was a little kid. And I have this feeling, I get this feeling it was the same for you. And that was probably the drive that got you the motivation that probably had you taking the B train to New York and going to CBGB's and
By
Max's.
myself,
Yeah,
always by myself.
by yourself, right?
I was never interested, even in Brooklyn. I
Yeah.
would sit on our, well, when we moved to another part of Brooklyn, I would sit on our stoop, which was about a couple of stairs,
Yeah.
and I had a little gray Panasonic record player that I played 7-inch 45 records. And again, all those different sounds, whether it was the Fifth Dimension, whether it was Sly and the Family Stone,
Right.
again, whether it was Todd Rundgren or Closer to Home by Grand Funk. And I think the song was so long that part one was on the A side and part two was on the B side.
Yeah.
But like I said, all that informed my listening. And I don't know, where are we going with this?
We were going downtown New York,
Oh, okay.
CBGB's.
Woo!
That's where we're going,
Okay.
in
Yes.
Max's.
So I always sat on my stoop by myself. I was never interested in people, in just regular people.
Right.
I didn't want anyone to tell me kind of how to do anything.
Mhm.
I didn't mean it to be rude or anything. I just appreciated, even at a young age, my quietness,
Mhm.
my doing things on my own. So yes, I would take the B train from Brooklyn into Manhattan, and I
Uh-huh.
would go to CBGB. I was probably only 15 or 16 years old, and the owner, who became like a dad to all of us young people, Hilly
Hilly
Crystal,
Crystal.
let us into CBGB. He
Right.
always warned us, if I see you with alcohol or beers, he was going to throw us out. It was like a detention for 2 weeks or so.
Right.
Whatever. So most of the time we didn't get caught drinking alcohol. But it really was a very special place, CBGB, because you have to remember, well, let's see. That was early on. That was 75, 76, 77, when the advent of punk rock was beginning.
Right.
So, of course, I got to hear all those records that were getting signed to Sire Records,
Right.
whether it was the Ramones, the
Mhm.
Dead Boys,
Yeah.
Richard Hell and the Voidoids, Talking Heads.
Right.
There was another label called Private Stock, and they had signed the first Blondie album.
Mhm.
Clive Davis had just signed Patti Smith, and that record Horses became such a treasure to me. I never
Yeah.
heard anything like Horses in my life, and that album cover, that androgynous album cover,
I
I'd never
know.
seen anything like that before, and that totally captivated me. And to this day, 2024, I'm still a huge Patti Smith fan. That's got to be 40. Oh my God.
Yeah. She
Ooh,
was
I don't
like a
even want to say.
female Keith Richards almost, you know? She had that
Well, she idolized Keith
yeah, with
Richards,
the
of
haircut and
course.
everything, the
Sure.
1975 haircut and
Yes,
everything. You were out
absolutely.
every night, right, Michael? You were out
Yeah,
every
yeah,
night.
yes. I was a young person who was out almost every night. I really don't know why my mom let me go out every night. I was in I was in an all boys Catholic high school. I like to think that she let me go out because I always did well in school.
Mhm.
She always worried about me. Every night she would light her candles to St. Jude for me and pray. I guess that I just got home in one piece, and thank God I always did. So,
And in the summer of 1980, your
mm.
whole life, your whole universe expanded. Tell us about that
Yeah,
because that was your
I
first
didn't.
job.
Sure. I didn't know that in 1980 my life was going to explode,
Wow.
in a word. Um, yeah. Uh, let's see. I'm going to the School of Visual Arts,
Mhm.
and which was I don't know, in the East Side on 23rd Street. But I also worked part-time at a pharmacy in the East Village on
Mhm.
Astor Place. Astor Place is the equivalent of 8th Street.
Right.
So I was taking lunch one day. It's 1980, and I don't know. I just walked down East 11th Street, and I saw a gorgeous building, and I looked up, and it was really a gorgeous building, and it was an Art Deco building. Back in the day, it was called Casa Galicia.
Okay.
It was a Spanish dance hall.
Mhm.
Then it was closed for a long period of time. And I saw a little 8 by 10 white piece of paper that said video club opening, resumes wanted. And it's 1980. It's the advent, the very beginning of MTV
Right.
that year.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what the heck is a video club? So I decided, because I had no fear ever, I walked into this building. I looked around. It was like starry-eyed because it was an Art Deco building that was absolutely stunning. And so I'm just looking around, and there's a man in the balcony. I sometimes like to call Jerry the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
because he looked at me and he said, "Hey, kid, can I help you?" I said, "Wow, this building is beautiful. And if you're opening up a video club, I would like to work here." And
Wow.
he said, "Do you have a resume?" And I didn't even know what the F a resume was. I said, "No, I don't have a resume. I go to School of Visual Arts."
Yeah.
And I don't know. He just thought that there was for him is some humor in how I said that. So he
Hmm.
brought me up to his office on the second floor of what was then going to be called the Ritz.
Hmm.
Some of your audience may not know it as the Ritz, but present day, they will know it as Webster Hall. So
No,
it's
yeah.
1980. I go up to Jerry's office. I didn't even know that Jerry Brand had major history behind him. Major history because he discovered Carly Simon, the Voices of East Harlem, when he was in the mailroom at William Morris Agency with David Geffen. They would be chatting up a storm, and Jerry didn't like the mailroom. He let the people at William Morris know. He slowly became an agent, and he helped bring the Rolling Stones to the United States.
Incredible.
Well, oh, totally. Jerry is my mentor, but I didn't know that part yet. So I'm sitting at his desk with him, and we start talking about the Great American Songbook. We start talking about what's going on in the New York Underground. And he said, "You know, kid, I like you. I'm going to give you a job here. You're going to open my mail, you're going to get my lunch, and you're going to answer my phone." And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in the music business.
Yes,
And
you were going to be.
I guess it was all I ever wanted, really, because I didn't have a B plan.
Right.
I don't even know if I had an A plan.
That's
But
usually how it works, though, isn't it, Michael?
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
But things were moving forward, and I totally appreciated that. So I quit the School of Visual Arts soon after that. I stayed, I guess, there 1 year, but I didn't need schooling to tell me what I was about to do at the Ritz. So I became Jerry's assistant. I did all those things that he asked me to do. I listened to all of his phone calls. I was like a sponge.
Right.
I listened to all of his phone calls because he was speaking to booking agents every
Wow.
day. Whether he was speaking to Frontier Booking, FBI Booking, Ian Copeland about booking the police or whomever they had on their roster at the time, I just listened to everything Jerry did. And about a year into it, he said, "Start making the calls." So I started calling the agents, and I learned how to book a nightclub that held approximately 1,500 people. And that was really, truly the beginning of my music career, you know?
And one day you actually got to book somebody who's going to become one of your good friends, but the gig turned out to be a bit chaotic, right?
I don't know. Oh,
Probably
yes.
hell, right?
Oh, yes. So, sure. If we're talking about John Lydon,
John
and
Lydon,
I'm
yeah.
sure we are.
Yes, we are.
It's now May of 1981 as we move forward little by little.
Mm-hmm.
And that May weekend, we had Bow Wow Wow playing, totally sold out 2 nights. That week, Malcolm McLaren called me up and he said, "You know, Michael, we're not coming." I said, "What do you mean you're not coming?" He said, "Well, Annabella is underage and her mom won't let her into the United States." I
Oh,
said, "Malcolm, Annabella was underage last month when you told me that y'all were coming, and I sent you a 50% deposit for the gigs." So he says, "Well, we're not coming." I said, "Well, do you want me to buy a ticket for her mother?" And for some reason, he was adamant about just they were not coming. So I said, "You could do me a solid and send me back my 50%. I don't think he ever sent back the 50%.
of course
I
not.
had, of course not. Malcolm McLaren. Hello.
Malcolm McLaren, right?
Yeah, correct. I had to start thinking heavy about what we were going to do in the nightclub on a weekend, you know, because nightclubs need to be packed in Manhattan on a weekend. Well, I found out, and I never met John Lydon before, that Pill were in New York promoting their album Flowers of Romance.
Wow.
I called the head of, I believe she was the head of publicity, Liz Rosenberg, and I introduced myself as I always did on the telephone. I never had any fear about introducing myself to people who I didn't know. And I let John, I guess they were on speakerphone, and I let them know that Bow Wow Wow canceled, and he probably made some snotty remark about Malcolm. And I said, I would love for you, Pill, to come and perform Friday and Saturday.
Right.
And they laughed in my face, and they were like, we're just here doing a press junket. And I found that unacceptable. So I told John and Keith and Jeanette I was sending a limousine for them. And would you just come down to my office in the East Village and listen to my proposal? So Jerry and I put basically a proposal together, and they told me they had no instruments, no nothing, and the wheels are turning, as artists' wheels are turning in their brains sometimes do, and they started talking to me about doing the show. I ordered Keith, I think it was like a Prophet 5 synthesizer, so we could program about 45 minutes worth of music into it.
Right.
And what the Ritz was starting to become known for as well, it was this 30-foot white screen.
Yeah, as a video screens,
Video screen where we projected all the videos.
Right.
Nobody ever came to a nightclub seeing a 30-foot video before, 30-foot video screen before. So they said they wanted to stay behind the video screen, and they just wanted these bright white lights to show their shadows. And please. And I thought, oh, they want to make art. They want to do performance art. But really, when people knew that Johnny Rotten was coming to New York, they didn't want performance art. Are you kidding me?
They wanted to see him.
They wanted rock and roll.
Yeah.
Heavy duty rock and roll.
Right.
So that Friday night comes, and the doors open. Music was playing. At some point, they get introduced and they come on stage, and people are feeling like there's something in the air that's just not right. So at one point, as only John can be, he like peeked his head out to the audience and he said, "We're never coming out from behind this screen." Oh boy. Oh boy. That was about 17 or 18 minutes into the performance.
Right.
People weren't digging it at all. Then all of a sudden, beer bottles start flying off the balcony from the orchestra, from the ground floor, and everyone panicked.
Totally.
In 1980, a lot of security did not know how to handle the younger people who were into hardcore and punk rock and just rock and roll.
Right.
So there was a bit of mayhem. Jerry, my boss, was panicked that people were going to rip down this very expensive 30-foot screen, which the audience started to do.
Ooh. Yeah.
So I don't know how fast. I don't remember how fast. That was 43 years ago. And I don't know how fast or slow security got the fans, the audience out of the venue, but they did. So I run upstairs to knock on the dressing room door to say hi to John and say, "Is everybody okay here?" Well, they thought it was a complete laugh. All they wanted was champagne and liquor and everything. And of course, I wanted to bring them back the next night. And Jerry was furious with me. He would not have it. I think we wound up having some sort of video night.
Right.
But, just quickly, and we can move on. From that day, 43 years ago, I've been friends with John Lydon, and God bless him. We've never had a bad word with each other. And people are like, "How do you not have a bad word with John Lydon?" I said, "Well, I don't ask him about the Sex Pistols every chance I get."
Okay,
we talk about life.
Right.
We talk about art. We talk about history. We talk about music. And I completely adore John.
You actually worked with him as well on an album.
Yes. Well, yeah. In 86.
Right.
He got signed with my help, but I didn't actually sign him to Elektra Records.
Mhm.
But there were many dinners with the head of our company, Bob Krasnow,
Right.
and we would take John out for many a dinner, many a lunch, much Japanese, sake, so like, you know, until you fell on the floor. And I was still drinking back then, so I was on the
Mhm.
floor with John as well. But, you know, he's an extraordinary artist. He is absolutely brilliant. And whether your audience knows this or not, last year his wife Nora of 45 years passed away.
I know. I
That's
know.
that's heavy
That's
duty.
very heavy. It must have been really hard on him. Yeah.
Oh, horrible. And
Wow.
then only a few months ago, his manager Rambo Stevens died.
Also passed. Yeah.
Rambo
Yeah.
was his childhood friend. So to have this kind of overwhelming sadness last year, one
Mhm.
can't imagine. I called him a few times on the phone, and he never picked up. I emailed him, only small little emails. So finally, I I called him on the telephone January 31st just to give him a little irk because he hated when one wished him happy birthday. So
Did he?
I sang him happy birthday. I said, I know you hate getting your birthday recognized, but I love you and wishing you happy birthday. Well, the next day he called me on the telephone and we chatted for a bit. You know, he's still not up for much of anything. He is going to go on his speaking, his book tour in
Mhm.
May.
Right.
But, you know, this is a lot of sadness. A lot of
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some good times. So
Sure.
after
Well,
the
that was it.
Ritz,
We had good times. Go ahead,
you
please.
sure did. I know. I'm sure you did. But after the Ritz gig,
Yeah.
you end up as a world-renowned A&R guy for Elektra Records.
Well,
And
Alexa, yeah,
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 and you signed Metallica.
yes.
Everybody wants to hear about that story. We never
Well, they
get
always
tired
do.
of that story.
Of course they do.
You know.
Elektra Records was more renowned than I was. I was a kid.
Yeah, but
Uh,
you were to become a world-renowned legend.
I've
Oh,
always been,
yes, you are.
I always tell people I'm a hard worker. So I
You
was
are,
at
and
the Ritz. I was
you're
at the
also
Ritz.
very humble.
Well, I was at the Ritz for 3 years, 80 to 83. I knew that there was I didn't want to leave Jerry, but I knew there was much more. There was a gentleman that I was going out with. His name was Mitchell Krasnow.
Mhm.
He told me his dad was leaving Warner Brothers to come re-up Elektra Records. They were in the, how do you say, the crapper, excuse
Really?
me. And so Bob was going to revive Elektra.
Mhm.
So I almost had that same conversation with Bob Krasnow that I did with Jerry. And it was about music. And it was about all kinds of music. But Krasnow also loved art. So I noticed in his in the lobby of Elektra, I think there was a Basquiat.
Basquiat. Wow.
Yeah, and maybe in Bob's office there was a Robert Longo and a
Wow.
Keith Haring
Okay.
and Richard Hambleton, who was known in Canada for those
Mhm.
Black Shadow Men pieces.
Yeah.
And I started talking to him about the art as well, and he was impressed. And I was impressed, and I remembered all of that. And he said, you know, thank you for the interview. And 2 weeks later, he called me and he said, I'm giving you a job at Elektra, and you will be in the A&R department.
You're
Well,
22, right? You're
I'm
22.
22 or 23.
Wow.
I hung up the phone. I cried.
Of
I
course.
called a friend of mine in the music business and I said, what's A&R? Well, they laughed in my face as well. Artist and repertoire, artist members here, friends, family. So A&R, artist and repertoire, the most important department at a record company.
Mhm.
The A&R person grooms and looks to sign artists that they feel will have massive success. One likes to hear songs that one feels has universal appeal. Remember, I was starting to work for a corporation, so it was really no nonsense.
Right.
You know, it was like the Adam Ant song, "Stand and Deliver."
Right.
I had to deliver.
Wow.
So I became friends with Johnny Z from Megaforce Records,
Mhm.
and he was lovely and brash and really fabulous. And we became friends very quickly. And he said, I have a little label called Megaforce. And he sent over to my office one day Anthrax, Testament, and Metallica.
Metallica tape,
Now this
right?
was this Kill 'Em All.
Yeah.
This was a little label that really had no money to support these artists, but it was all, they were full of spit and vinegar, as people used to say. So fast forward a little bit. Well, not really fast forward. I'm sorry about that. John had another band called Raven. They were a power trio with two brothers, Mark and John Gallagher, the Gallagher brothers, and their drummer, who was nuts, and I loved him, named Wacko. So John thought they were going to be the biggest thing ever. I gave him $5,000 to make a proper demo of the 5 songs. The songs were fabulous, but there was a problem. I already heard Kill 'Em All, and I knew that I had to have these people in my life. So let's see.
Oh, that's pretty intense. You already knew they were going to be in your life.
Well, I heard Kill 'Em All,
Right.
and it was a record like I never heard anything like that before.
Yeah.
You know, I loved heavy metal. I loved Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and everybody who was coming up at that time. But those young people were meshing things like British heavy metal,
Yeah.
old school hard rock,
Mhm.
speed. Maybe there was a little dash of punk in there.
Sure.
And that whole conglomeration
Mhm.
mesh of music was a thing called Metallica. Anyway, so we'll fast forward. I'll leave out a few details, but I wound up not signing the Gallagher brothers and Raven, although they are absolutely fabulous and they still perform and they're about to go on the road again. I knew I had to sign Metallica. So we can fast forward to August 4th, 1984. Also James Hetfield's birthday that day.
Right.
And they're part of a triple act bill with Raven and Anthrax.
Yeah.
And it was really an insane night. There's probably over 3,500 young people at Roseland. And Roseland had been a venue, a dance hall also back in the day, 50 odd years ago. Anyway, so that night, August 4th, all hell broke loose. It was fantastic. And I went insane that night. You know, I knew they created something in the air that was different than most bands one had been listening to.
Right.
So of course, never one to be shy or anything like that. I made my way to the backstage area, and security was like, you know, what are you doing? I said, you know, like I'm producing this band, you know, I'm managing this band. And everybody, you know, they all know that I was so tanked that nobody dared say anything to me. So I had met Lars the previous year, I'm sorry, in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and I had given him my card. He gave me his little card. And he called me prior to Roseland and said, we're coming to New York. This was a year later. Are you interested in us still? I said, hell yeah. So I knocked on the door and I stuck my head in, and Lars was very happy to see me. Well, I was laughing and screaming and carrying on and drunk and kissing everybody. And they're all like, who is this person? And Lars said, James, Kirk, Cliff, this is Michael Alago. He works for Elektra. And they all looked at me as like if we're going to put our lives in this person's hands.
Really?
It was very funny. You know, remember, we were all 21, 22,
Yeah.
20.
You were kids. You were babies.
Yes. Like the Patti Smith book, we were just
kids. Right.
So, you know, that night, you know, everybody continued to drink. There was a reason back then they called Metallica Alcoholica.
Yeah.
It might have been even just the next day. They came up to my office at Elektra, and we were in the conference room, and I ordered Chinese food and beer. And that really kind of was the beginning of getting that, even though it was still a bit of an early days, it was the beginning of getting the deal sealed that they would be on Elektra. And you know, I don't know where to take this, so I guess I'll just say, and the rest is history, as we all know.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I never mind talking about Metallica. I never mind telling this story, but I'll also say to your audience that it's 2024, and I have a memoir out called
Absolutely.
yeah, I am Michael Alago, breathing music, signing Metallica, beating death. Um, I write about it on all social media,
Mhm.
Instagram and Facebook. I have signed copies of the book for people who are looking to purchase it. But I tell lots of great stories in that book, filled with crazy shenanigans.
Absolutely. I know it's common knowledge that you're a man of faith. We're going to wrap this
Yes,
up in a few minutes, but I want to talk to this before we leave because, you know, I've been reading your posts every morning religiously. That's a play on words.
yes.
And
Spiritually,
I know, yeah,
religiously. Go
spiritually.
ahead. Yes, I'm sorry
Wouldn't
to
you
interrupt,
agree
Mark.
that each and every one of us at one point in our life, we become somebody else's earth angel? I believe that. Would you
Sure.
say that you became Nina Simone's Earth Angel when everybody counted her out? You actually took her in and you gave her a new career, a new album.
Sure. Um, well, if we're talking about faith and spirituality, back in the day when I was drinking, I used to tell people I was a roaming Catholic.
Roaming
Not, you know, 16 years clean and sober. I'm
right.
not a Roman Catholic. I've renewed my faith. I'm filled with spirituality and love and hope and peace for everyone. Yes, I was in love with Nina Simone, the person and the music,
Mhm.
for many, many years. My Aunt Jenny in Brooklyn used to play her recordings, and I just loved that voice. So one day in 1983, 84, I called her brother, Sam Wayman, on the phone, and I said, I love your sister. I do A&R for Elektra, and I'd love to meet and talk to her. So she was coming to play Irving Plaza. For those 2 nights, 4 shows, they renamed it Swing Plaza. So I went down in the afternoon to meet her and to hear her, I guess her sound check. And I was standing in the back of the empty venue because it was the daytime, and she was sound checking. At one point, she looked and she said, "Sam, who is that person back there? What does he want? What is he doing here?" So Sam said, "Oh, this is the A&R man from Elektra." She said, "You're an A&R man from Elektra? Come up here. How old are you?" I was mortified. And she said, "Wait a minute, you do A&R?" I said, "I do." I said, "I'm 26 years old." She also laughed in my face. And a lot of people laugh in my face at a very young age. And I said, "You know, Nina, I love your music. I've been loving it since I'm an early teenager, and I'd love to do some work with you." So
Wow.
she said, "Come up on the stage." I sat on the stage next to her, and she pulled a little prank on me. She said, "Do you like tea?" I said, "I love tea." She said, "Have some of my tea." She didn't tell me that the tea was mixed with not only honey, but so much cayenne pepper that I thought I was going to like die. She
Cayenne
laughed.
pepper.
Um, Anyway, that was the beginning of our lifelong friendship. Nobody at Elektra wanted me to sign her in the 80s. So all I would do when I had extra travel money, I would follow her all over the world, whether I was in Sweden with her or a lot of times in London. I just was so in love with the music. I mean, to this day, she is my absolute favorite artist. Anyway, I got to sign her in 1991, and she was thrilled. I was thrilled, and we made what was going to be her final recording. We
Mhm.
recorded most of it in Chick Corea's studio in
Wow.
yeah in
Fun
Los
fact.
Angeles. Yeah. The producer was Andre Fisher. He was the drummer in Chaka Khan's Rufus.
Oh, tell
Yeah.
me something good.
Hello. I just
Hello.
told you something good, Daddy.
Yeah.
So he was also at the time married to Natalie Cole,
Wow.
and I was the executive producer of A Single Woman. I gathered all of the material together with Nina. At that point in time, Nina and I loved 2 albums so much: Frank Sinatra's "A Man Alone" and Billie Holiday's "Lady in Satin." And we just kind of merged quietly those 2 records, and we thought, this is what we want our record to sound like.
Brilliant.
sad and beautiful and lush. We got a 50-piece orchestra, and it's really a delicious record.
What a way to say goodbye. What a way to
Oh,
say goodbye.
yes, sir. Absolutely. And we stayed friends for the rest of her life. And she passed in April of 2003. What do I say? I was absolutely devastated.
Yeah.
I love Nina more than anything. I'll tell you all a good story. It's July of '93. I'm in London. Nick Cave from the Bad Seeds is putting together concerts called the Meltdown series.
Right.
So one night it was Suicide, one night it was Elvis Costello, one night it was the Bad Seeds, and one night it was Nina Simone.
Wow.
So she did an extraordinary show that evening. But in the day, I showed up to her. It's July of 1999. I show up to her hotel with 24 white roses and a bottle of champagne. I knock on the door, and she was getting her hair cornrowed. She was getting her clothing pressed for the evening. She saw that it was me. She threw everybody out of the room. She said, "Let's take a bubble bath."
Oh my God. Okay. That's a great story. And we'll leave it to that because that's
There
all
you
the
go.
time we got. Michael,
Oh,
I know. We'll do this again, hopefully, I hope.
wait a minute. There definitely has to be a part 2.
There will be. There will be, because you got some new photographs coming. You got a new book as well. You got to
I'm
be
working
a
on
new book.
stuff. It's still in the making, but you can let your friends out there know I have a documentary called "Who the F Is That Guy?" The
It's a great
Journey of
documentary.
Michael Alago
Yeah.
on Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
on Tubi, on Xbox, on YouTube, and Google Play.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that you're cutting me off, I'm out of breath anyway. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure to finally see you
Yes.
and speak to you. God bless you.
God bless you, Michael.
I appreciate that. And we'll see each other soon, everyone.
Very
Thanks a
soon.
lot.
Thank you. Our guest today has been Michael Alago. I'm Mark Arseno. This has been the Lightning Rider podcast on CNV America. Until next time.